I never thought the first man to truly notice my pain would be my husband's younger brother. Even now, saying those words out loud makes my stomach twist with guilt. Because when I got married 7 years ago, I believed love was supposed to grow stronger with time. I believed silence between two people meant comfort, not distance. I believed if you gave someone loyalty, patience, and your entire heart, they would eventually protect yours too. I was wrong. In the beginning, my husband wasn't cold. He used to call me during lunch breaks just to hear my voice. He used to bring home little desserts because he remembered what I liked. We would stay awake late at night talking about vacations we couldn't afford and dreams we promised to chase together someday. Back then, I truly felt chosen. But somewhere between his promotions, endless work calls, and business trips, I slowly disappeared from his life without him even noticing. At first, I kept making excuses for him. He was stressed. He was tired. He was working for our future. That's what I kept telling myself every night while eating dinner alone at the kitchen table. Sometimes he came home so late that I pretended to be asleep because I was tired of watching him walk past me without even asking how my day was. The loneliness became part of my routine. I would wake up early, clean the house, cook meals he barely touched, and wait for conversations that never happened. Some nights I would spend almost an hour choosing what to wear before he came home, only for him to walk inside while staring at his phone the entire time. I stopped buying new dresses after a while because I realized he never noticed them anyway. The saddest part wasn't that he stopped loving me, it was that he stopped seeing me. One evening I tried talking to him about it. I remember standing near the sink while he typed something on his laptop. "I miss you," I told him quietly. "I'm literally right here," he replied. That sentence stayed in my head for weeks. Because physically, yes, he was there. But emotionally, he had been gone for years. I stopped calling my friends because I didn't want to explain why I sounded so empty all the time. My parents thought married life was treating me well because I smiled during video calls. I became very good at pretending. I laughed when necessary. I nodded during conversations. I played the role of a happy wife so perfectly that even I almost believed it sometimes. Then his family came over for a weekend gathering, and everything quietly began to shift. His younger brother arrived later than everyone else. I hadn't seen him in almost a year because he lived in another city for work. Unlike my husband, he always carried warmth with him naturally. He greeted everyone properly, joked with his mother, helped bring bags inside without being asked. Small things. Simple things. But after years of emotional neglect, small kindnesses started feeling enormous to me. While cooking dinner that evening, I accidentally burned my hand pulling a tray from the oven. I tried hiding it because guests were everywhere, but he noticed immediately. "You're hurt," he said. "It's nothing." Without another word, he walked to the freezer, wrapped ice in a towel, and handed it to me carefully. "You should stop pretending things don't hurt," he said softly. Nobody had noticed my pain in a very long time. Not even the obvious kind. Later that night, everyone sat together laughing in the living room while I cleaned dishes alone in the kitchen. My husband didn't even realize I was missing. But his brother walked in quietly and started drying plates beside me. "You cooked all this by yourself?" he asked. I shrugged. "I'm used to it." He looked at me for a second too long before speaking again. "That doesn't mean you should have to." I remember turning away quickly because I suddenly felt emotional over something so stupid. A few simple sentences. That's all it took. That's how empty I had become inside. The next morning he thanked me for breakfast in front of everyone. It sounds ridiculous now, but hearing genuine appreciation felt unfamiliar. My husband grabbed his coffee and walked away without saying a single word while his younger brother smiled and said, "This is actually amazing." I caught myself smiling back. And immediately hated myself for it. Over the next 2 days, I started noticing the difference between them more and more. One man barely looked at me anymore. The other noticed everything. Whether I was tired, whether I had eaten, whether I forced smiles during conversations. And the worst part? I started waiting for those moments. That realization terrified me. One night after everyone went to sleep, I sat alone on the balcony scrolling through old anniversary photos on my phone. Back when my husband still held my hand in public. Back when he still looked proud to stand beside me. I didn't even realize I was crying until I heard footsteps behind me. His younger brother stopped when he saw my face. "What happened?" he asked quietly. I wiped my tears quickly. "Nothing." He didn't believe me, but he also didn't push. Then he glanced at the dining table inside the house where candles still sat untouched. "Wait," he said slowly. "Was today your anniversary?" I looked down. My husband had forgotten completely. No dinner. No flowers. No message. Nothing. For a moment, neither of us spoke. And somehow that silence felt more intimate than anything I had shared with my husband in years. Before walking away, he said something so simple that it kept me awake the entire night. "Someone should have remembered." After that night, I tried convincing myself I was overthinking everything. He had only been kind to me. That was all. A decent person noticing another human being in pain shouldn't have felt dangerous. But the problem was that I had lived without warmth for so long that even basic attention started affecting me in ways I couldn't control. 4 days after his visit, I kept replaying small moments in my head. The way he noticed when I was quiet. The way he listened fully when I spoke. The way he thanked me for things my husband ignored automatically. I hated how much those memories stayed with me. Nothing inappropriate had happened. But emotionally, something had already started shifting inside me. A few weeks later, my husband mentioned casually during dinner that his younger brother would be visiting again for work nearby. The second I heard it, my heart reacted before my mind could stop it. That terrified me more than anything. I spent the entire afternoon criticizing myself internally. Why are you excited? What is wrong with you? His family. I kept repeating those thoughts while cleaning the house unnecessarily, trying to distract myself from the truth I didn't want to admit. Somewhere deep down, I was looking forward to seeing him again. When he arrived, the energy in the house changed instantly. My husband barely looked up from his laptop when I served dinner, but his brother smiled the moment he walked into the kitchen. "You look tired," he said. I laughed softly. "That obvious?" Only to people paying attention. That sentence lingered with me the entire evening. The strange part was how natural our conversations became. He asked questions nobody had asked me in years. Not surface-level questions either. Real ones. "Do you still paint?" I looked at him in surprise. "You remember that? You used to talk about it all the time." I almost forgot I once did. Before marriage, I loved sketching portraits and landscapes. I used to spend hours drawing while listening to music. But after years of household routines and emotional exhaustion, those pieces of me slowly disappeared. My husband never cared enough to notice when I stopped. But somehow his brother remembered. One evening the electricity went out during heavy rain. My husband got annoyed immediately because the Wi-Fi stopped working, then locked himself in the bedroom to continue some office call from his phone. I stayed in the dining area near the candlelight while rain hammered against the windows. His brother sat across from me quietly. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. Then he looked at me carefully and asked, "Are you happy?" No one had asked me that in years. I opened my mouth to answer automatically the way married women are expected to. "Of course. I'm fine. Everything's good." But for some reason, the lie wouldn't come out this time. Instead, I stared at the candle between us and whispered, "I don't remember the last time I felt important to someone." The silence after that confession felt heavy. He leaned back slowly, almost like my words hurt him personally. "You shouldn't feel invisible in your own marriage," he said quietly. I looked away because my eyes suddenly burned with tears again. That conversation changed everything. After that night, our interactions became more personal without either of us meaning for it to happen. He started helping me in the kitchen while everyone else relaxed. Sometimes we talked about random memories from years ago. Sometimes about books, music, or dreams we gave up on. And every time we spoke, I felt more like myself again. That was the dangerous part. He didn't make me feel desired first. He made me feel alive. I started noticing embarrassing things about myself. I cared more about my appearance whenever he visited. I would fix my hair before opening the door. I would catch myself smiling at text notifications, hoping they were from him in the family group chat. The guilt became unbearable. Every night I told myself to create distance emotionally, and every morning I failed. Meanwhile, my husband became colder than ever. We barely spoke unless it involved bills, groceries, or schedules. One night I cooked his favorite meal hoping maybe we could reconnect somehow. He took 2 bites before answering a work call and leaving the table completely. I sat there eating alone again. Across the room, his brother noticed everything without saying a word. A few days later, we all attended a family dinner together. Somewhere during the conversation, my husband joked about how sensitive I had become lately. "She gets emotional over nothing these days," he said while scrolling through his phone. Everyone laughed lightly except me. I forced a smile, but humiliation burned through my chest instantly. Then his younger brother spoke calmly. "Maybe people only become sensitive when they feel unheard for too long." The table went silent. My husband looked annoyed immediately. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," he replied casually. "Just saying everyone deserves respect." No one spoke after that. But my heart wouldn't calm down for the rest of the night. Later, while driving home, my husband barely talked. He was irritated about being challenged publicly. Meanwhile, I sat quietly in the passenger seat thinking about the fact that another man defended my feelings before my own husband ever did. That realization broke something inside me. A few days before leaving, his brother knocked softly on the guest room door where I was folding laundry. "I got something for you," he said. I frowned in confusion as he handed me a wrapped package. "You didn't have to do that." "I know." After he left, I opened it slowly. Inside was a beautiful leather sketchbook. My chest tightened instantly. For a second I couldn't even breathe properly. Tucked inside the first page was a handwritten note. "You deserve to be remembered too." I must have read those words 20 times that night. And for the first time in years, I cried for reasons that had nothing to do with sadness alone. After he left, the house became quiet again. Not peaceful quiet. Empty quiet. The kind that forces you to hear every thought you're trying to escape from. I tried focusing on normal life again. I told myself the emotional attachment had gone too far already and needed to end before it became something unforgivable. So I avoided checking family messages. I stopped opening the sketchbook he gave me because even touching it made my chest ache in ways I couldn't explain. But no matter how hard I tried, my mind kept returning to him. The worst part was that I started comparing everything. The way my husband ignored me. The way his brother listened. The way my husband spoke to me like responsibility. The way his brother spoke to me like I mattered. I hated those thoughts, but they came anyway. A week later, my husband noticed I had become distant. Not emotionally concerned distant. Possessive distant. "You've been acting weird lately," he said one night while loosening his tie. "I'm just tired." "You barely talk anymore." I almost laughed at the hypocrisy of hearing that from him after years of silence. But I stayed quiet because I no longer had energy to fight for attention from someone who only noticed me once I emotionally checked out. That same night, my phone buzzed unexpectedly. It was his younger brother. "How are you?" Just 3 words. Simple. Innocent. Yet my heart reacted instantly. I stared at the message for almost 5 minutes before replying. "I'm okay." That should have been the end of it. Instead, those conversations slowly became part of my nights. Some nights we talked for hours without realizing it. And every conversation left me feeling simultaneously comforted and guilty. One evening my husband came home angry after work and immediately started criticizing everything around him. The house was too quiet. Dinner was too cold. I was too sensitive. Normally I would stay silent to avoid arguments, but something inside me had changed. "I'm tired too," I said softly. He looked at me like he couldn't believe I interrupted him. "Tired from what exactly?" he snapped. That sentence cut deeper than he realized. Because the truth was, I was exhausted from carrying a marriage alone. The argument escalated quickly after that. Years of ignored pain finally started pouring out of me. I told him I felt invisible, unwanted, forgotten. But instead of listening, he became defensive immediately. "You're being dramatic," he said coldly. That night I locked myself in the bathroom and cried so hard I struggled to breathe quietly. Without thinking, I grabbed my phone. I texted his brother. "I don't know how much longer I can do this." The reply came almost instantly. "You shouldn't have to survive love." I read that message over and over until tears blurred the screen completely. A few days later, he came by unexpectedly while my husband was still at work. He claimed he needed to drop off some documents, but the moment he saw my swollen eyes, his expression changed. "What happened?" he asked. I tried lying again. "Nothing." He stepped closer carefully. "Please don't do that with me." That sentence broke whatever emotional control I still had left. I started crying immediately. Not graceful crying. Not movie-style tears. The ugly kind that comes from holding pain inside too long. And instead of giving awkward advice or changing the subject, he simply stood there beside me quietly while I fell apart. "I don't even recognize myself anymore," I whispered. His jaw tightened as he looked at me. "You deserve to be loved properly," he said softly. The moment those words left his mouth, everything changed. Because deep down, both of us understood the truth we had been avoiding. This was no longer innocent. The air between us suddenly felt dangerous. For a second, neither of us moved. I could hear my heartbeat pounding so loudly it almost scared me. He slowly lifted his hand like he wanted to touch my face, then stopped himself halfway. That restraint somehow hurt more than if he actually had. I stepped back first. And that's when reality crashed into both of us at once. He was my husband's brother. Whatever feelings existed between us could destroy an entire family. After that day, I avoided him completely. I stopped replying quickly. I made excuses. I told myself distance would fix everything before things crossed a line we could never return from. But emotionally, it was already too late. Because even in silence, I thought about him constantly. Then life became even uglier. I miss last night already. My entire body froze. At first I prayed there was some explanation. But once I opened the messages, the truth became impossible to deny. Hotel bookings. Deleted conversations. Lies during business trips. Months of betrayal hidden behind the same coldness that had slowly destroyed our marriage. I felt physically sick. All those years I blamed myself for being lonely while he was already giving parts of himself to someone else. When I confronted him the next morning, he didn't apologize. He got angry. "You went through my phone," he shouted. I stared at him in disbelief. "You cheated on me. You pushed me away first." That sentence killed something inside me permanently. For the first time in years, I looked at my husband and felt absolutely nothing. Later that evening, his younger brother came to see me after hearing about the fight. The second he saw my face, he knew the truth. "He was cheating?" he asked quietly. I nodded. For a long moment, he looked more heartbroken than surprised. Then finally, with visible pain in his eyes, he admitted the thing both of us had been trying desperately not to say. "I think I fell in love with you a long time ago," he whispered. The room went completely silent. But I swear I never wanted this to happen. Tears filled my eyes instantly because I felt the exact same way. He looked away before speaking again. "I'm leaving next week," he said. "Permanent transfer." My chest tightened immediately. And that was the moment I realized something terrifying. The thought of losing him hurt more than losing my marriage ever did. After he told me he was leaving, something inside me collapsed completely. I spent the next few days walking through the house like a ghost. Every room carried memories of disappointment, arguments, silence, and now him. Even the smallest things reminded me of everything that had changed. The kitchen where he helped me dry dishes. The balcony where he noticed my tears before anyone else did. The dining table where my marriage quietly died while another connection slowly came alive. My husband barely spoke to me after our confrontation. Not because he felt guilty, because he felt exposed. That was the cruelest part about it all. He betrayed me physically for months, but somehow my emotional connection with his brother became the greater sin in his eyes. One night he finally exploded. "You think I don't see what's happening between you two?" he snapped. I looked at him calmly for the first time in years. "You lost the right to question loyalty when you started sleeping with someone else." His expression darkened immediately. "So now you admit it?" Because the truth was complicated. Did I physically cheat? No. But emotionally, somewhere along the way, my heart had crossed lines my body never did. And pretending otherwise would have been another lie. Within days, the tension spread through the family. His mother sensed something was wrong. Relatives started asking questions after hearing about the separation. My husband painted himself as the victim whenever anyone called. According to him, I had become emotionally unstable. He conveniently left out the affair. But eventually the truth surfaced anyway. And when it did, everything exploded. The arguments became uglier. Accusations flew from every direction. Shame wrapped itself around all of us. His family couldn't process the emotional connection between me and his younger brother. Some blamed me entirely. Others blamed my husband for destroying the marriage long before anyone else entered the picture. But through all the chaos, one thing became painfully clear. Nobody was innocent anymore. Loneliness explained my vulnerability, but it didn't erase my choices. I knew that. There were nights I should have created distance emotionally and didn't. There were moments I allowed myself to need him too much because being understood felt addictive after years of emotional starvation. And his brother knew it too. Not because he didn't love me. Because he did. A week before his transfer, he asked if we could meet one last time before everything ended. I almost refused. I knew seeing him again would reopen wounds I was barely surviving already. But deep down, I also knew I couldn't let him disappear without saying goodbye properly. When I saw him standing there waiting for me, reality hit all over again. He looked exhausted. Like the past few weeks had aged him emotionally. Then he handed me a small box. "Just open it later." My fingers tightened around it carefully. His eyes stayed on me for a few silent seconds before he finally spoke. "I never wanted to hurt you." That sentence shattered me because I believed him completely. Unlike my husband, he never manipulated me. Never chased me selfishly. If anything, he spent months resisting feelings neither of us planned to have. Tears burned my eyes instantly. "You were the only person who saw me," I whispered. Pain flashed across his face hearing that. "No," he said softly. "You were always worth seeing." He just stopped looking. I looked away immediately because hearing those words hurt too much. For a second it felt like we existed completely alone in the world. No family. No guilt. No broken marriage. Just two people who found each other at the wrong time under the worst circumstances possible. Then finally he admitted the truth we both already knew. If things were different, he started quietly before stopping himself. I finished the sentence for him in my head anyway. Maybe we could have loved each other without destroying everything first. But life doesn't care about timing. And love doesn't always arrive morally. That's the tragedy nobody talks about. Some connections enter your life too late. He stepped closer slowly, close enough that I could hear his breathing. For one dangerous moment, I thought he might kiss me goodbye. Part of me even wanted him to. But instead, he rested his forehead lightly against mine for just a second before stepping back again. That restraint said more than a kiss ever could. "I think leaving is the only good thing I can do now," he said. I nodded while silently breaking apart inside. Because deep down, I knew he was right. Chasing whatever existed between us would destroy what little remained of everyone involved. Love alone wasn't enough to erase consequences. When I got home later that night, I finally opened the box he gave me. Inside was a set of professional art supplies, sketch pencils, paints, and a folded paper beneath them. My hands trembled opening the note. You spent years giving your whole life to people who stopped appreciating it. Please don't abandon yourself too. I cried harder that night than I had during my entire marriage. Not because I lost him. Because for the first time in years, someone reminded me I still existed beyond being somebody's wife. A month later, he left the city. No dramatic goodbye messages. No secret meetings. Just absence. And somehow that hurt the most. The divorce process between me and my husband moved forward quietly after that. By then, there was nothing left worth saving anyway. The marriage had ended emotionally long before the papers made it official. Months passed slowly. At first, the loneliness returned stronger than ever. But this time it felt different. Before, I was lonely because I felt invisible. Now I was alone, but finally starting to rediscover myself again. I began sketching regularly. Then painting. Then eventually selling small pieces online. For the first time in years, I built routines that belonged to me instead of revolving around someone else's neglect. And somewhere during that healing process, I realized something important. His younger brother didn't save me. He woke me up. He reminded me how deeply I had abandoned myself trying to hold together a marriage that stopped loving me back long ago. I still think about him sometimes. Probably more than I should. But certain people enter your life not to stay forever, just long enough to change you permanently. And maybe that was our story from the beginning. Not a love meant to last. A love meant to awaken. Because sometimes the people who break your heart are different from the people who wake it up.